So big news, I'm sure you've heard by now, Roe vs. Wade has been overturned. They overturned Roe vs. Wade. And so I want to get a little bit into what that actually means. And I think specifically in this video, what I really want to talk about is the human condition that makes this such a controversial topic. All right, so Roe vs. Wade, a woman's right to choose what happens to her own body versus the moral justification of murdering babies. That's what we're dealing with here. So from a scientific argument and standpoint, it should be pretty clear that life begins at conception. Any argument against that hasn't. People say that that's not true, but nobody can ever define when it actually begins, or if it doesn't begin at conception, when does it begin? Nobody has an answer for that. And it's not a human growing inside of the woman. What is it? Like, what are we even talking about here? So, I mean, there's just so many like inconsistencies and flaws, even within the law. The murder of a woman, I don't know if this is still true, but if you murder a woman who was pregnant, it's considered a double homicide because you killed the baby as well. But yet, when you think about abortion, it's not murder though. So what are we even talking about? Like how can this be a thing and nobody can even define? You know, I've heard that it's not a baby, it's just a clump of cells. Well, I learned in science class, you know, they tell us to trust the science or whatever. I learned in science class when I was a kid a long time ago that they were looking for life on Mars. And if they could find one single cell organism that's a single cell being, a life that is only a single cell, then you could prove that there was life on Mars. There's plenty of single cell organisms in the ocean. And I guess I'm sure they're in the air, they're all over the place. But if it's a single cell organism, so how can a cell be alive and a clump of cells be alive, but the thing that the cells make up is not alive? Like, come on, like what are we doing here? So how can we do these types of things? And the answer, this is what I really want to get into with this video. Not a scientific argument. You do your own research or whatever, but like, it doesn't make sense. But what we're really talking about here is the human condition of trying to find ways to sin without consequence. That's what we always try to do. And even if you don't know that, you know, never read the Bible, don't know what all the commandments are. I remember not being saved, and I remember kind of knowing, and I've even had conversations with people at that time. We knew that we weren't right for having sex and we weren't married, but everybody does it, whatever. And we didn't know why it was wrong. We didn't even know to call it sin, but it just wasn't right for some reason. It just wasn't right. And God puts that moral code in every single person. But so it's just like a parent. You tell your child, don't touch the stove hot. You know, you're not trying to keep your kid from having fun. You're not trying to do anything like that. You're trying to keep him from hurting himself. You know, and the kid can say, it's my body, it's my hand, it's my choice. I'm gonna just put it on here anyway. You get burned. Well, I told you, don't touch it. You know, and so God designed sex for a very specific purpose, to be enjoyed between a husband and a wife in a marriage covenant. Anything outside of that is sin. And in our hypersexualized culture, reality TV, music videos, just whatever, everything. And I don't even have to, everybody, you can see that. It's a hypersexualized society that we live in. Of course, sexual promiscuity or just sleeping around is encouraged everywhere that you look. Well, there's consequences to that. Science, biology, this is simple. People get pregnant. And so when you're talking about abortion, you're saying, well, this is a way to keep from having to suffer the consequences of your actions. And this is why God don't want us to have sex outside of marriage. He wants it to be enjoyed within a marital covenant because, well, this is one reason, but there's so many negative things that happen when it's done any other way. So, God is just trying to protect us. So we have a lot deeper issues than just Roe versus Wade. And I mean, realistically, I live in Missouri. If I was to get somebody pregnant today, they could go to Illinois tomorrow and have the abortion and then come back to Missouri. So, like, it's good that this, the federal government is not like backing this thing anymore. That's good, but we just have a lot deeper issues than just this abortion thing. How about teaching our children to wait for marriage? That's a foreign concept. Like, it's a completely foreign concept, and I don't even necessarily blame. Most kids don't even hear talk like that. So why would they not be having sex and everything like that? But there is just always consequences to your actions. And what the devil does is try to do everything opposite of what God is saying and try to tell you there's a way around the consequence. There's no way around the consequence. It just doesn't work like that. Life don't work like that. And we're teaching our children, not just with abortion, but just period. You can do what you want to, and nobody can tell you nothing. This is a huge problem in our society. And we're raising a generation of kids. You see them, they're growing up, and they just do whatever they want to do, and they feel like you can't tell them nothing. Well, okay, but guess what? There's always going to be consequences, negative or positive, for every decision that you make in life. And pregnancy is a consequence of having sex, heterosexual sex. Like, come on, okay? You was big, bad, and grown enough to do it, and they got commercials out there. We just took away, you just forced pregnancy on people. Nobody forced you to do that, okay? Nobody forced you to do that. And there's a small percentage, people argue about the actual percentage. I don't know the actual percentage of like rape and different things like that. And I mean, that is a real thing, but that's a small percentage. Let's not make the small minority the rule for everybody, right? And at the same time, if it's murder to kill the fetus growing inside of a woman, then it's murder no matter how you go about it. But there's resources, there's programs, there's things that can help, out there to help, designed to help women get through these times. And I personally believe that we should be pouring more resources into these types of programs, into education tools, and not into trying to get rid of the consequence. Like that is an irresponsible way to live. And I mean, I'm just be completely transparent. When I was 18, I got a girl pregnant and paid for an abortion. I didn't know anything about God at that time. And I mean, that's something that I have to live with for the rest of my life. Thank God Jesus died to save me from my sins. I would have on my way to hell anyway. But yeah, I mean, I have to live with that. It wasn't right when I did it. It's not right, period. I would have a 24-year-old son or daughter right now, 23 or 24, and what would they be like? What would have happened? I'll never know. And I have to live with that for the rest of my life. It's just something to think about. Why? What is all the fuss about? What is the push about? What are we doing in society for real? Like, I mean, even comedians, especially female comedians, it seems like not nothing, but you can't have a comedy set without at least doing some sex jokes. Like nothing's funny but sex. Like what you know, TV shows, people just having sex, and it's just so funny and it's so cool and everything like that. So the consequence of promoting it like that is people have sex all the time with people just sleeping around. That's a thing. And the consequence is people getting pregnant, women getting pregnant. Let's be specific. Women getting pregnant. And you just want to bust it under the rug. Abortion, boom, just go back to your life. Everything cool. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Okay? You want to do grown people things, there's grown people consequences. Where's the education? And even in the church, there's a lot of emphasis on, hey, don't have sex till you get married. Don't have sex till you get married. Don't have sex till you get married. Well, what do I do in the meantime? My thing gets hard every time the wind blows. Young teenage boy or whatever. What am I supposed to do if I'm not having sex? No real education around these things. Preparing to become a husband or a wife. Where's the education on that? Let's prepare our kids to become husband and wife so that they don't have to wait till they're 30, 40, 50 years old to get married. You can be preparing mentally, spiritually, financially, to be preparing for these things at 18, 19, 20. Like, there's a great responsibility that comes with marriage and kids. I mean, there's a huge responsibility. So why don't we prepare our children to handle the responsibility? What the devil do is he'll try to give you the perks and say you can skip the responsibility. That don't ever work. It never works. And trying to rush into stuff when you're not prepared, like it just things become much harder. But man, just preparing, teach our kids to manage money, to invest, not to get in a whole bunch of debt. Make them stay on top of even things like chores. That's a responsibility. If you can handle these simple responsibilities, I know it's not comparable, but at the same time, you do the good with the little things. You gotta always trust us with more. He can trust you with more when you can do right by the little. And teach our kids these same things. You can have more responsibility. We can give you more when you do right with what you got. But just hyper consumerism, I can do what I want. Nobody can tell me nothing. I have a right. They call it entitlement. Well, you didn't just become entitled just because. It's a lot of things, a lot of factors is going on that make people feel like they should be able to be like that, and it should be okay. And these are the issues that we need to address as a society. It starts really with the Word of God. The further we get away from godly principles, I mean, He made this world, He set it up the way it was supposed to be. And the further we get away from His order, the more chaos and just dumb things like evolution and all these just dumb stuff that we see going on and being promoted and pushed and shoved down our throats and our kids' throats. And if we, the church, don't stand up, the world's going to do what they're going to do, but let's teach our kids different, and talk to anybody who will listen. Like, hey, God didn't set it up to be this way. If you continue in my words, you'll know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. Paul said he warned Timothy that people will be ever learning but never come into the knowledge of the truth. So the thing is, Jesus is truth. If you want to know truth, you got to know Him. There's no real truth outside of Christ. You can believe what you want to. You can believe that or not believe it. But the fact remains, the further we get away from truth, the more crazy our society becomes. All right, God bless.